The scars stretched across her abdomen like a private map of survival, each line marking a battle she had won, but never learned how to celebrate. Under the soft glow of her bedroom lamp, Emma Matthews traced them with shaking fingers, her reflection staring back at her with eyes that looked strong to the world and broken to herself. Cancer had not killed her body, but it had almost erased her belief that she was still worthy of love. At 38, with a career most people dreamed of and a life others admired, she carried a secret loneliness so heavy it sometimes stole her breath. What she did not know on that quiet evening was that the very scars she believed made her unlovable were about to become the reason someone stayed. The fluorescent lights in the Horizon Publishing office hummed faintly as Emma locked her door, sealing herself into silence after a long day of meetings and forced confidence. As a regional director, she led 40 employees with steady authority, her heels clicking down hallways like punctuation marks of control. People saw polish, intelligence, certainty. No one saw the nights she sat alone with her phone, scrolling through dating profiles she never swiped on, closing the app before hope could rise high enough to hurt. No one saw how illness had taken more than a piece of her body. It had taken her sense of being desired, chosen, safe. Cancer at 35 had been swift and ruthless. The surgery had saved her life, but the words of the surgeon still echoed in her mind, explaining survival in clinical terms while warning about scarring as if it were a small inconvenience. 3 years cancer-free was supposed to feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of something she could not cross. 2 relationships had ended the same way, right when closeness approached, right when questions became glances, and glances became expectations. Both men had tried to be kind. Both had quietly stepped away, and each time, Emma had told herself she understood, while something inside her slowly learned to expect abandonment. A knock at her office door broke the stillness. She wiped her cheeks, straightened her blouse, and forced composure back into place. When she opened the door, she found Jack Reynolds standing there with a toolbox in his hand, his posture relaxed, his presence calm. He was the building's maintenance manager, new enough that Emma only knew fragments about him. Efficient, quiet, a single father, widowed. There was something about him that made her feel seen in a way that unsettled her, as if his eyes noticed more than her title. He explained about a rattling heating vent, speaking simply, without rushing, and she stepped aside to let him work. As he moved around the office, adjusting metal and checking screws, Emma noticed the contrast in him. His hands were strong, worn by years of fixing broken things, yet his movements were gentle, precise, careful. He looked like a man who understood fragility because he had lived with it. She asked about his daughter, remembering the photo she had seen on his desk, and when he spoke about Lily, his voice softened in a way that told its own story. 11 years old, curious, brilliant, the kind of child who filled silence with questions. When Emma awkwardly realized she was asking into territory that might hurt, Jack did not retreat. He spoke openly about raising Lily alone, about how most people avoided the subject altogether, as if grief were something that could spread by contact. That was when Emma felt the connection shift from polite to real. She told him how people treated illness the same way, how they avoided it out of fear, how silence could be lonelier than any diagnosis. There was understanding between them that did not need explanation. When Jack finished fixing the vent and turned to leave, he hesitated. He asked her, simply and nervously, if she might like to join him and his daughter at a food truck festival after Lily's science fair. It was not grand or dramatic, just an invitation wrapped in sincerity. Panic rose instantly in Emma's chest, reflexive and cruel. She declined before thinking. Using the old defense that had protected her from disappointment for years. But something broke open inside her the moment she said it. 3 years of loneliness, of pushing people away before they could see her scars, crashed down all at once. She told him quietly that it was not about him, that no one truly wanted her. And when he looked at her with confusion instead of agreement, she felt the last wall collapse. She showed him the beginning of her scars. Not fully, just enough to reveal what she believed defined her. She braced herself for the familiar reaction, the polite pause, the excuse, the emotional exit. Instead, she felt his hand on her shoulder, steady and warm, grounding her in the moment. He did not move away. He did not look at her with pity. He told her, calmly, that he was not leaving. He spoke about his late wife, about watching her fight cancer for 2 years, about understanding what scars meant because he had seen the cost of survival up close. To him, scars were not damage. They were proof of endurance. For the first time since her diagnosis, Emma felt something other than fear flutter in her chest. Not certainty, not safety, just possibility. She accepted the invitation. The food truck festival was alive with music, laughter, and motion, and Emma felt strangely nervous walking through the crowd with Jack and Lily. Lily's excitement filled the air as she proudly showed off her science fair ribbon, her words tumbling out faster than her steps. Emma watched Jack interact with his daughter, patient and playful, and realized how long it had been since she had been around something so genuinely joyful. Lily noticed everything. She asked direct questions, made honest observations, and spoke truths without hesitation. She saw loneliness the way adults pretended not to. When she asked Emma if she was lonely too, the question landed gently, without judgment, and Emma realized how rare it was to be seen without feeling exposed. For the first time in years, she answered honestly. The evening passed easily, filled with laughter, shared food, and the simple comfort of being present without hiding. Emma felt herself relax, step by step, as if a part of her had been holding its breath for years and was finally allowed to exhale. Their relationship grew slowly, deliberately, built on patience rather than urgency. Jack never rushed. He never pushed. He listened. He shared stories of his late wife, of loss and love and fatherhood shaped by grief. Emma shared her diagnosis, the terror of mortality, the emptiness that followed survival. Their time together felt less like dating and more like healing alongside someone who understood pain without needing it explained. When Emma finally trusted him enough to reveal her scars fully, it was not dramatic. It was quiet and vulnerable and terrifying. Jack met that moment with reverence, not urgency. He treated her body not as something to inspect, but as something to honor. And in that tenderness, Emma cried not out of shame, but release. Months later, when Jack asked her to move in with him and Lily, Emma surprised herself by saying yes without hesitation. Fear still existed, but it no longer ruled her decisions. Lily welcomed her with unfiltered enthusiasm, already imagining shared routines and inside jokes. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to believe in something she had not planned, not controlled, not earned through achievement. A family. Their life together was imperfect and beautiful. There were checkups that brought anxiety, nights where nightmares surfaced without warning, moments when grief returned unexpectedly. But there was also laughter in kitchens, shared silence on porches, and the steady knowledge that she was no longer facing fear alone. When Jack proposed to Emma, he did it in the middle of the same food truck festival where their story had quietly begun. He spoke of scars as transformation, of pain becoming something precious, of love that did not require perfection. Emma said yes with tears streaming down her face, surrounded by strangers who felt like witnesses to something sacred. Years passed. Lily grew into a thoughtful, brilliant teenager who called Emma Mom without ceremony, as if it had always been that way. Emma celebrated milestone after milestone cancer-free, each one still shadowed by fear, but now wrapped in gratitude. Her scars faded slightly with time, but never disappeared, and she stopped wishing they would. They were no longer reminders of loss alone. They were part of a larger story. On the evening of her 8-year cancer-free anniversary, Emma stood watching Jack teach Lily how to change oil in her first car. Sunlight caught the ring on her finger. Her hand rested instinctively over her scars, not in sadness, but in acknowledgement. She had survived. She had lived. She had loved. That night, Jack gave her a journal filled with words he had written since the day they met, documenting hope when he had been afraid to expect it. The rest of the pages were blank, waiting for the years ahead. Emma understood then that healing was not about erasing scars or returning to who she had been before pain arrived. Healing was about allowing someone to see the broken places and choose to stay anyway. It was about believing that love could exist, not despite imperfection, but because of it. If this story moved you, remember this. Your scars do not disqualify you from love. Your past does not cancel your future. Sometimes the people who change our lives arrive quietly, carrying their own wounds, ready to heal together. If you believe in second chances, in resilience, and in stories that remind us we are still worthy, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them most.